Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, Ashani Jayasinghe-Dabare, the CEO of GIS Solutions, is with us in the studio today to give us her perspectives and insights into Sri Lanka's prospects as an investment destination. Next, we asked Nielsen's Managing Director Sharang Pant to analyze the rise in business confidence. The LMD Nielsen Business Confidence Index moved up by 11 basis points. And in our final segment, LMD's columnist Shiran Fernando shares his thoughts on Sri Lanka's macro outlook. That's the lineup for Benchmark.
Hello and welcome to the Big Picture Business Program Benchmark. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. Today in our studio in the hot seat is Ashani Jayasinghe-Dabare, the Chief Executive Officer of GIS Solutions, and she's giving us her perspectives and insights into Sri Lanka's prospects as an investment destination. Among the points under discussion, we look at how investments can be promoted to benefit the country in the long term, and also the ICT sectors that hold opportunities for domestic and foreign investors, and also the policies that we need to promote investment in innovative technologies to support the ICT industry's development. Welcome to Benchmark, Ashani. Good to have you on the program.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Now, looking at the macro picture before we go into your area of ICT, how do you see the prevailing investment climate here in Sri Lanka?
I think if you look at the region, we have a very skilled labor force with, I think, somewhere around 92% literacy, and this workforce could be easily groomed to be even more productive than what it is. And there are projects in the pipeline which are very promising, like the Port City and the Hambantota Harbour project and the projects around it. So this presents a lot of opportunity for investors to come here, because it's going to be a whole new economy. I'm very positive about Sri Lanka and its economy, because we have been a very resilient economy. Even through 3 decades of war, we have growth year on year. If you take even the last 3 months, yes, there was a lot of turmoil, instability, but business went on as usual. We have a very resilient private sector, so that fuels the economy, and I'm very positive.
So, Ashani, now a target of $5 billion as exports in by 2020 has been set for the ICT industry. In which ICT sectors do you see opportunities for both domestic and foreign investors?
Like I said, our key differentiating factor is our workforce, and there's a lot of emerging technologies that are in the horizon, things like big data analytics, data science, blockchain, IoT, and cloud. So these are emerging sectors which are very promising and which are being adopted globally. So there is opportunity that's arising from this. Apart from that, we have traditionally been more of how would I say, an outsourced software development hub. We can, I think people like Slascom, ICTA have plans to do a more IP-centric development, value-added product engineering. So those are the areas that are being focused on by these groups as well as the government. So it's very promising, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in those areas. What we need to probably do is, as the private sector, work as one, get together. It doesn't happen as much as it should, and start making also our own investments. We can't always hold government and policy responsible. We need to take action. We need to grow our industry which we are in. So I believe it's the right time to get our act together and make investments to grow.
The Chief Economist and Secretary General of the National Economic Council, Professor Lalit Samarakoon, estimated that from this year, Sri Lanka will have to pay something like $4 to $6 billion in loan repayments for the next 6 years. That's a considerable amount of money. But So to bridge that, we need that investment. Have perceptions of Sri Lanka as an investment destination been impacted by our debt obligations?
If I'm not mistaken, even in the mid-2000s, our debt to GDP ratio was close to 100%. Still, we survived, and ours is a resilient economy, as I mentioned. So we have hope. And I was at a forum last week where the central bank governor was addressing a group of business people. He was very confident that we could service our debt without an issue. What needs to happen is, I think the politicians need to stop talking about, how bad our debt is. It's more of a perception than a reality. No, those debt borrowings were mostly for development, which need to happen. I mean, we need to develop our infrastructure to go forward. So I think if the politicians would keep quiet and look at the greater benefit of the country, and if we communicate our strengths to the investors and leverage on it, more effective communication is needed, I think we'll be fine.
So we are looking at attracting about $3 billion in FDIs this year and $5 billion by 2020. How can investment be promoted in areas for long-term benefit, not just as a short-term bridge the gap kind of thing?
I agree with you. We have to look at the long term. It's about time as a nation we look at a long-term plan. We need to, we see India and places like that having 10-year plans, 20-year plans for each of the industry sectors they strategically target. We don't have such plans. Even if we do, things change from the ruling party to ruling party. We need to have consistency in policy, have those plans in place. I also believe we need to have credible, knowledgeable experts and professionals leading those visions and those plans, and their appointments and their continuity should not be affected by any other political factors. And then we need to communicate all these things to the potential investors, and then look at a very effective promotion strategy. I think before talking about promotion, there's a little bit of housekeeping to be done. We need to really focus on our country. I mean, it's long enough that we've been divided. And if I take the ICT sector, again, without being divided, if the private sector organizations, there are few large companies, if we can all get together and start investing in resources like data scientists, other specialists, even welcome resources from other countries, because there's a lot of learning that needs to happen. So we need to be open-minded. We need to think beyond our personal agendas and look at a national perspective for the long term.
Which policies actually promote investment in innovative technologies to support the ICT industry's development and also the goals that we have for us?
I think first we have to look at the education system. There are certain reforms, certain modernization of curriculums that need to be done to introduce specialized skills which we now don't focus on, like critical thinking, design thinking and things like that. Also enable kids who are going out of school or dropping out of school in another way to pursue careers in IT industry, and not be confined to the traditional way of testing people on some test paper. And well, that's on the education side. I think the other area that I would look at is labor related policy and law. There is a lot of protectionism and sterilization, if I may call it in economic terms. We want to keep ourselves closed up from the rest of the world, but that doesn't make us better. I believe in open markets and liberalized markets. If you have competition, there is innovation that comes in to differentiate yourself. So that has to happen. We need to be, stop being closed up. Like if you take a university like Harvard and check how many American professors are there, you will be surprised. But if you take one of our universities, state or private, and check the academic staff and ask how many foreign representation is there, I'm not saying they're better than us, but we can learn. and there are expertise out there that we are not being open to with our protectionism. So that's another area that I feel that we need some, how would I say, opening up our minds to, and being open to learning from other people, because other economies in certain sectors are way ahead of us, and we have to be competitive. We really want to be somewhere. So specialized skills even in management for need to be introduced. The university system has to be looked into. Are we actually preparing the student for employable position outside of the university? Is what being taught is going to benefit, and what's the economic impact that student is going to make when he or she goes out there? So these things have to be considered, and policies have to be in place to facilitate, not only in ICT but I think across government, to facilitate this vision.
So we pause for a commercial break. On the other side, we ask Ashani Jayasinghe-Dabare if the fiscal incentives that have been proposed have been successful in encouraging the development of the ICT industry, and whether the government's plans to develop the ICT industry is enough to promote a knowledge-based economy. Do stay with us.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
$8,500 done. 1,500 go. Hoorah!
What on earth are you doing?
I'm making money.
You're crazy.
Crazy for money. $10,000 steps done. Who the man? I do it every single day. Show me the money.
So you run 10,000 steps every day, huh? You must be fit.
Some days I do 20,000. Hoorah!
You're with Benchmark, and we are speaking with Ashani Jayasinghe-Dabare, the Chief Executive Officer of GIS Solutions. Ashani, just getting back to the ICT industry, have the fiscal incentives that the government is proposing and has been trying to introduce encouraged the development of the ICT industry, in your view?
Well, I think that remains to be seen because we have grand plans for 2022. But I see certain fiscal reforms like the tax on telcos may hamper ICT development, because you make telephony and data use expensive. That's going to have an impact. And on top of that, we have one of the highest per unit charges for electricity. So I think we have to see how it's too early to say.
So are the government's plans to develop the ICT industry enough to promote a knowledge-based economy, you think?
That we could do more. I mean, we can even look at the tax structures for professionals. It has increased from what it was. So that's not going to, attract, people to stay back. People who want to work will look at, where it benefits them most and, consider other destinations for work. The brain drain, we still have not put under control. So that is something that we need to address. We have to provide a conducive environment with competitive salaries in every industry to stop these young people from leaving our shores and finding, their happiness elsewhere. So we need to look at everything as a whole across government for in every department to facilitate this. So you need a vision and somebody to drive that continuously for 10-20 years and see it through.
In the 2018 budget, 3 billion rupees was provided to the industry over 3 years in the form of grants and equity investments and credit facilities and to attract foreign startups and support for local startups, etc. Have you seen this happen in reality? Do you think this is going to take off? Startups, for instance, or SME IT companies, for instance, do you see momentum gathering?
Yes, there is definitely momentum. I personally have witnessed it. We as a somewhat large ICT provider, we have started working with very innovative startups run by very interesting young people. So there is the startup culture picking up, and then there are various venues that have opened up like Hatch and both in the northern province as well as in Fort, and certain that hub startup hub concept taking off. So I think it's just the beginning, but we need to protect these people because they say most of the startups don't make it all the way. So we have to nurture them, we have to provide them the support. There has to be very diligent monitoring and support being given. I think we can do a little bit more in that front, and it's not all about money. It's sometimes helping them market their solutions and what they do in the IT space, as well as building capacity, facilitating growth through various facilities given considering their scale and specialization.
Do you think there is enough policy consistency to attract domestic and foreign investment?
I think there's probably more work to be done there. Like I said, speaking more from an IT perspective, we need a long-term plan, and we need to drive it through and see it through. There is, every 6 years or so, every time the government change, this can't change. We have to have one vision for Sri Lanka as a nation, and all Sri Lankans need to back it. See, what happens is sometimes the populace, the popularity of some reform takes precedence. So if you try to change a labor law and 100 people strike for it, it's re-looked at. But certain reforms are necessary. For example, if an IT or some expert from overseas comes in here, the spouse can't work. So who's going to be interested in coming in here and starting employment and making your better half unemployable? So for family reasons, they won't come. Not even our own Sri Lankans sometimes want to consider that if they are foreign passport holders. So there are we have to, as a nation, be alive to these realities. Most of the time these are hidden, and they're hidden for various reasons, but we need to think beyond ourselves, think beyond protecting our territory and our professional interests. we need to be competitive. We need to be good enough to work anywhere. And to do that, we need to be open.
We can't be another India when it comes to the ICT industry. So how can Sri Lanka's ICT industry actually differentiate itself from the rest of the region, from the competition that is constantly evolving and coming upwards?
We definitely don't want to be another India. We need to look at high value, high impact target groups and solutions where that's what I believe SLASCOM and people have targeted. And we need to work as one nation here and ensure that ICT development is at the heart of the government, not restricted to one ministry and one minister or whatever. And knowledgeable people are there to implement. And it's very important that we segment who we cater to, and I believe we have the right positioning concept in mind for 2022. We're looking at high-end product development, IP creation, where we are not just developers for some party, but we can do high value production, high value development, and make a name for ourselves and differentiate. We shouldn't underplay our greatest strength, which is our workforce, and they work under very good conditions as opposed to India or a Bangladesh. There is no exploitation, there's ethical work environments, labor laws protect the worker more than other countries. So those are all important things for a high value customer, how something is produced is done ethically, and there is no sweatshops and things like that. So we've done this very successfully in the garment trade when we launched the campaign Garments Without Guilt. I think even in the IT sector, we need to play to this. And also the fact that we are strategically, geographically located, we can service many markets from our location, Australia on one side, Singapore, etc. But nobody is going to do one-sided trading, so we have to be open to them.
So as a final question, Ashani, if you look at the big picture again, the macro picture, what are Sri Lanka's investment prospects for 2019?
I think like I said, we've made some long-term investments. Certain plans are already in place. It's still not the harvesting seed time, and what we need to do is be patient, but be consistent and work hard at it. And like I said, we need to have that plan in place for the long-term 10-year, 15-year, 20-year plan, and ensure its implementation. So I believe it's very positive. Now is the time to start the work and see the fruits later. For the next 3 to 5 years, if we continue our efforts consistently and be hardworking and dedicated to the cause and focus and not get derailed by certain politics of the system, we will do fine.
Thank you, Ashani. Obviously, if state and private sector work together cohesively, there will be results.
Definitely.
We've been chatting with Ashani Jayasinghe-Dabare, the Chief Executive Officer of GIS Solutions, on the big picture investment for Sri Lanka and also in particular for the ICT industry. On the other side, we have Anushan Silvaraja.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Done. 1,500 to go. Hoorah!
What on earth are you doing?
I'm making money.
You're crazy.
Crazy for money. 10,000 steps done. Who the man? I do it every single day. Show me the money.
So you run 10,000 steps every day, huh? You must be fit.
Some days I do 20,000. Hoorah!
Welcome back to Benchmark. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now for a closer look at the latest on the L&D Nielsen Business Confidence Index. Joining me is the Managing Director of Nielsen, Sharang Pat. Welcome back to the show, Sharang. Now the BCI moved up. So could you just explain the sensitivities behind this?
So BCI in the first month of 2019 has moved up. It was at 90 in the month of December 2018. It has moved up to 101 in January 2019. Now the movement is more because of political developments in the country rather than the changes or the trends in the macro environment. If we talk about the macro environment, inflation is more or less about the same level as in the previous few months. Exports are still doing well. Tourism is still doing okay. So business sentiments are not really impacted by that, but more about the anxiety on what happens to the government. And since the time we've seen political stability, the index has also moved up. At the same time, if you look at the consumer sentiments have also moved up from 50 in the month of December 2018 to 53 in Jan 2019. And we see that reflecting in actual consumption as well. FMCG consumption for a first time after many quarters has gone back into the positive. So that's possibly good news for marketeers and they can expect some growth in the coming year.
So has this positive sentiment permeated through impressions of the economy both for the short and the long term?
So when it comes to the economy, yes, there is an improvement. About 4% of the leaders felt the economy will improve in the next 12 months. This was the previous month. This month, about 11% of them say the economy will improve. So there is a change in when it comes to the perspective or the expectations from the economy. However, when it comes to the business, about 1 in 4 expected business to grow in the next 12 months in the previous month. This month, only about 17% of the leaders say that the business will improve in the next 12 months. Similar sentiments on the short-term growth as well. So what we feel is while business leaders are optimistic about the economy coming from the political stability, they're still pretty cautious when it comes to their own business performance.
Then what about our investment prospects, Sharang, in terms of workforce and all that? How do the respondents feel about that?
So investment prospects have improved marginally. About 7% of the leaders feel that the investment prospects are better this time. When it comes to investment into additional workforce, that also has improved or rather remained stable compared to the previous month.
So what would be your projections then, Sharang?
What we feel is with economic or rather political stability coming in and elections coming in very soon in the next few months, we expect certain policy changes to come in which will benefit businesses as well as consumers, that might bring in investment and at the same time help consumption move up. As a result, the index might go up in the next couple of months.
Thank you very much for joining us, Sharang.
Pleasure. Thanks.
That was the Managing Director of Nielsen, Sharang Park. We'll be right back after a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
Welcome back to Benchmark. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now for a closer look at the latest on the economy. Joining me is economist and LMD columnist Shiran Fernando. Welcome back to the show, Shiran. Now, just to start off, how has the economy performed so far this year?
So only just 1 month into it, but I think we've had quite a dynamic month and largely once again on the debt side because of the debt refinancing that we've had to do with $1 billion, the international sovereign bond coming up for maturity on the 14th of January. So what we've been told is that reserves have been used to service this debt and keep it, make sure that we meet that commitment. But in addition to that, we've seen the RBI providing a stock for about 400 million and some other facilities also opening up. Central bank is also looking to go out into the international market and raise some degree of financial loans, because right now in emerging markets and global markets there is a bit of a more positive environment relative to what we've seen for most months in 2018. So that has been, I think, the key part on that side. And also, once again, resumption of talks with the IMF, because that's also a key investment boosting kind of a step to take as well. And I think with those talks that we had in Washington, the conclusion was at least in the middle of February, there will be the IMF team coming here and maybe a resumption of talks. So those hang in the background, but the economy, the problems or the issues that were there in 2018 still persist.
In your article in this month's issue of the LMD magazine, you state that FDI into the manufacturing sector has dropped. Now, what are the implications of this?
So, I mean, the overall FDI number is, at least for the first 9 months, was about 1.8 billion, driven largely by infrastructure and the big ticket items, the ports, the Colombo port city. So, those really driving it. Unfortunately, manufacturing services not really seen too much of a growth, and that's concerning because you need investments into those which will then drive more export-led kind of investment and export goods in that aspect. So that does not augur well. It could be maybe the investment climate or some of the investment regulations that were in place that prevented maybe more inflows coming in, and maybe relook at whether we are competitive to actually attract some of these manufacturing kind of investments into it. I think heading into the remainder of this year as well, whether we'll get more policy certainty for manufacturer-led investment, because infrastructure we sort of do need with the connectivity required. Manufacturing and some of the services are more long-term investment decisions for some of these companies.
So Shiran, how is the agricultural sector faring then?
So a lot of the drought situation and flooding situation that hampered 2016 and 2017 seem to have waned off, at least in terms of the harvest output. But there is, I think, a lot more to do in terms of the way we look at efficiency, planting of the crops, using more modern methods, technology in some of these productions, which a lot of the other countries are adopting, and also being more climate resilient, which we are not doing too well on a lot of indicators in terms of that as well. And there are certain self-sufficiency goals that we have in certain agriculture goods as well. So are we really doing the metrics on that? And the other part of this is the labor. Sometimes some of the export-led ones are having labor issues, strikes, things like that, whether those can be resolved. So a lot of, I think, hard decisions need to be made. Some policy changes need to be done. Whether there is the will to do that is the question.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
That was economist and LMD columnist Shiran Fernando. Thank you for watching Benchmark, and we hope to see you again next time.